$200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES. You're listening to the SNES broadcast with your hosts, Soulblazer and George.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Super NES Podcast, episode number 117 for you this time. As always, I'm Greg. He is George.
That's me.
And we have another Japanese-only game for you this time around. Picked by George because he likes to cover these obscure, interesting, weird Japanese games.
Is it weird though?
In some ways, yes. But we'll get into it. What game did you decide to have us cover in this episode, George?
Energy Breaker.
Yes, which is probably, as I've seen some people on YouTube describe it, one of the best Super NES RPGs that you've ever heard of.
That's pretty bold to say, but all right.
Yeah, it's actually pretty popular these days. It seems like, but yeah, this is
seemed decently popular before too. I looked at GameFAQs, and it was one of those games where somebody or a couple of people made guides. And
right.
It's like, well, this is what this means on the selection menu, and this is what this means, and this means that, and this thing works like this. And it's like, oh, okay. And they're all from like 1998 or like 2002 or something like that.
Right, yeah. This game always did have a cult following because of its developer, which we'll get into here in a moment. But also because of the fact that people argued that it was kind of a more friendly RPG RPG game for English people to play. I mean, compared to some other RPG games, I mean, yes, there's a lot of text, but you can figure out the gameplay mechanics of this game without having to something like trial and error.
I don't know. A lot of things aren't explained to you in this game, and I'm still trying to figure things out.
Luckily, we don't have. Luckily, we don't have to go through that now because because ROM hackers released a full translation of the game several years ago.
I think it was like 2012, maybe.
Yeah, about that. So
something like that. There
were different versions of the patch. The patch, of course, as always. So I think the last one was like 2013 or something like that. But yeah. So they do some good work. So this game is fully translated, and it's a very good translation. I mean, like ROM hackers usually does like top-notch stuff with their their translation stuff. So
yeah, well, there's usually a guy that's like, hey, that's grammatically incorrect, or hey, put a comma there or something. So
right.
There's when it comes to ROM hacking now, it seems like a lot of these teams have at least one guy that's like, that's kind of not written well enough. Please, please move around the commas and the periods, and that's a run-on sentence. And
sure.
Yeah, which is nice. Definitely. I've seen older ROM hacks where it's like, this sentence almost makes no sense, even in English. What are you doing? And it's like, I can't be mad at you because you translated the dang game for me. Thank you, but also like,
yeah,
that's a me thing, though, I guess.
No, I know you're right. I've had the same frustration. The efforts definitely gotten better in the last 10 years or so. The internet's definitely helped with that because allows people to work together easier, to collaborate and stuff and whatnot. But yeah, we talked about those people in the past. Like, those people who do translations are really amazing because, like, they're putting a lot of effort and time on their own, without being paid, just to translate a game so other people can play it. And it's
one thing to translate Japanese into English. It's another thing to translate Japanese into English, then also make sure that you have to hack the game,
right?
And make sure all the English words fit in the
Yep.
container. And a lot of these games are actually very hard to do because the containers are small, because the Japanese characters, the kanji or whatever it's written in,
Right, it's more compact than English is.
yeah,
So,
because they're more like actual, because like words and whatnot put together are like characters, whereas like words here are just like big moshes of pixels and crap, and it gets very difficult for people. So sometimes the wording has to be a little weird for it to fit. Sometimes they have to use abbreviations and stuff like that.
Yep.
And it's like, I wish there was a better way, but at least we're able to play some of these games. That's not the case for this game, though. That is not the case for this game. This was done very well. There was enough room for all the words and everything.
Right.
It's very well written.
Right.
So, also, it was awesome.
Which is a bit surprising because from everything I can find online, granted, I will give this half warning, half apology at the start. This is a very hard game to find information on because it is a Japanese-only game and not super popular.
Yeah.
But when I could find, there were no plans to bring this game over to the States. A lot of these Japanese RPGs we talk about, the company at least talked about or planned to Westernize the game. Not this one. This one looks like it stayed Japan only from like from the get-go.
The get-go? Yeah.
Yeah. Which is surprising because the developer did have other games picked up by publishers like the West. This game was developed by a company called Neverland, which was in operation from 1993 to 2013. They're best known for, well, a lot of their games did come out in the West, but like I said, they were always published by somebody else, so people don't really recognize the company's name. But they worked on two big series. One of them is the Lufia series.
Yes.
Right. Which those games did get published by Taito in the West. A lot of their games are published by Taito, like over here, by over here. So, the other series they worked on was the reboot, the Shining Force series, like on the PS2. So,
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. They also worked on the Rune Factory series, which is which I've not played, but I've heard like good things about.
I started playing the first game somewhat recently.
There were a lot of them. They made 4 games plus 4 games in the series. It's like plus a spin-off. So
I think you'd like the Rune Factory because it's like a Harvest Moon, but also there's like a combat side on top of other things. Yep,
definitely. So yeah, they made games for the Super NES, Game Boy Color, Saturn, Dreamcast, GBA, GameCube, PSP, PS2, PS3, Wii, the DS, and 3DS.
What about my refrigerator?
Nope, not that one. So.
Oh, dang.
This game, Energy Breaker, was one of their early games, but not their first one. So even though the company went bankrupt in 2013, speaking about the Rune Factory, the Rune Factory team was hired shortly thereafterwards by a company called Marvelous AQL, and they developed the 3DS game Lord of Magna, A Made in Heaven. So as that team got stuck together, was kept together at least. So it's possible. It's possible there may be like more Rune Factory games in the future, depending upon if they're new.
I think there was one that came out somewhat recently, though, right?
Rune Factory 4 for 3DS was the more was the most recent release, but that was. I
need to stop using the 3DS as a gauge because the 3DS is actually very old.
Well, let me check to see. Okay, yep.
3DS came out in like 2011.
Something like that. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. This game took a long time to come over to the West. The Rune Factory 4 for 3DS. It got released in Japan in July of 2002. It didn't come out in North America until October of 2013.
I think you mean it came out in 2012 originally, not 2002.
Oh yeah, sorry, 2012. And then like,
don't worry about it.
Europe.
Slip of the tongue.
Europe didn't even get the game until December 2014. So even
Yeah,
longer,
what is up with Europe? Europe's weird, man.
but
Sorry, I don't mean that.
But it's also interesting. They've announced Rune Factory 4 coming out to Switch sometime this year. So.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, that's right. I heard about that. Okay. Yeah.
An enhanced version called Rune Factory 4 Special.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I'm sorry. I have to just create this tangent here for a second.
Sure.
When you Google a game, it usually goes by like, here are similar games or whatever. Here's one that's people also search for: Rune Factory from 2006, Rune Factory 3, Fire Emblem, Clive Barker's Jericho, and Mega Man 4. What? Why is this related? I'm sorry. It was just a weird thing that popped up on my screen. I'm sorry. Go on.
Yeah, those last two games don't really have anything to do with the first series.
Yeah.
That's strange. So
I want to play my Mega Man Harvest Moon game, guys.
So this game. So I mentioned before, Neverland had a good working relationship with Taito. We've already covered Taito before in the past. I won't spend much time on them. They also published this game as well in Japan. Energy Breaker. It came out in the summer of 1996. So one of the later Super NES releases.
Right.
And it shows. I mean, this game's described as being an isometric RPG, and the graphics in this game are gorgeous. They're really well defined. Large sprites, good colors. This game reminds me a lot about, not only graphics, George, but also in terms of gameplay. This game reminds me a lot about Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yes, it's like a turn-based, I guess, kind of strategy-esque type of game.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely kind of does play like Final Fantasy Tactics. The only thing is, like, there's an energy system, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, but I think I'm starting to understand it.
It's complicated.
You can have X amount of maximum energy, and then what you could do is, like, you can keep using it as much as you want the first time around, and then when you run out, you can skip your turn or whatever, then you recover some back, and then you can do what you want with the rest of that energy. So it's interesting. So you can technically attack as many times as you want, or move as many times as you want, as long as you have the energy to do so.
Right.
But there are definitely times where I found myself, I ran out of energy, could not regenerate any energy back, and I was totally screwed. Even with the easier enemies. So there is definitely like another level on this that I'm kind of missing still, because I still don't know how to fully gauge how much energy I have or anything. But once you start leveling up, you get more energy and whatnot, and that's really helpful, because then you don't really have to worry about running out of energy so quickly.
Right. Yeah. So as alluded to before in the beginning, in some ways, Energy Breaker is a very typical RPG, and in some ways, in other ways, the game is very unique. And the energy system is definitely is a very interesting system.
And that's just combat we're talking about.
Right.
It's really interesting because there's the dialogue stuff is really interesting, because there's like a mood system. I don't even know what to call it. But like, you can talk to people aggressively, you can talk to people friendly, you can be just like neutral, stuff like that. And you kind of get different responses from that, which is really interesting.
Yeah, it's a little bit kind of like the BioWare system that they use for their games. Like the responses.
Kind of, but not exactly. It definitely works differently, because a lot of the dialogue choices in this game are kind of like samey, but it all depends on like your tone and whatnot, compared to like a BioWare game where it's just like, oh, you know, are you going to say the mean thing, or are you going to say the nice thing? Whereas this is like, are you going to say it nicely, or are you going to say it aggressively? And that, like, and it's really interesting, because I feel like that's a little more realistic, where you can get a tone with somebody, and either, you know, you could scare them or just annoy them. And I don't know, I didn't get like too far with the dialogue stuff, but from what I've seen, it was really interesting. How
Right.
you can give people a different tone and they would kind of talk a little bit differently to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, yep. I definitely agree. This is I mean that's a good segue to talk about the story. The story of this game a little bit, because every good RPG needs a good story. And and from what I could tell and how much I got into it, the story of this game is like pretty good. It does have some tropes that you'd expect to find this time period in this genre, but it does have some interesting stuff also. Like for example, the main character of this game is a woman in the time period in which,
Yes.
in a time period which that wasn't done very much. So,
Maybe in like games that came out to the West, but if you take a look at it, there's actually a decent amount of games where the protagonist is a woman,
Right.
at least in some of these Japanese games.
Right.
So it's weird. I don't know.
yeah,
But yes, it's definitely different for us over here, at least.
exactly right. So, yep. So you play as Myra, who is, well, you don't know. Well, you don't know a lot about her at the start of the game. That's on purpose, because she suffers from because something happened to her recently where she suffers from where she suffers from memory loss.
All right, if anyone's playing JRPG bingo, you know where to put that chip.
Like I said, tropes, but she's clearly skilled though as an adventurer, because she has skills in combat and combat abilities where it's where kind of tips her off that that combined with the drive to do something, it's kind of like, okay, I obviously am something. Let me see like what I am, kind of like. So, and basically that's how the game starts, like, in a nutshell. You go around the world, pick up, recruit people to join you, and try to figure out what's going on. Honestly,
a game. I'm sorry for another tangent, everyone. The game that I think of that actually has a really good way of dealing with amnesia is it's a more modern game. But if you've ever played, I believe it's called Lost Odyssey, you play as a man who is immortal and lives for centuries, essentially. But he doesn't exactly have amnesia. Like, he has memory, like, he remembers
right.
everything that's going on currently, like, at the time that he's living. But he's so old that he forgets all the events that happened in the past. And actually, there's like a side thing that you can do, like collect all these memories, and you read them back as like they're pages in a journal.
Right.
And a lot of these stories are actually like really touching stories. And you think about it, it's really sad that he actually forgot about this, but it's not his choice, because he's immortal. He lives forever. So I feel like that was a game that did that pretty well.
Yeah, there are a lot of games that have used that amnesia / memory loss trope over the years. I think, I think the two classic examples of games which use that, which people always think about, would be maybe Flashback and Planescape Torment.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
So, both of which are great games. But so anyway, you can have what is it, George? A party size of 3 in this game.
I believe it's 3.
3, right? Yep. So, so some other things in this game that are different / unique. George already mentioned before that there's skills in the game. The skills are used by energy points. You
learn new skills by collecting grimoires.
Yep.
Or is that how they're called? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, I think so. Yes.
Yeah. So you can buy them, but they're also like laid out, like kind of hidden in the background. You gotta look for the chest and collect them. But the catch is to go on.
Oh, sorry. Just to say, this game's very Dragon Warrior-esque, and it kind of encourages you to kind of search every nook and cranny to get that stuff. So,
what was I saying? But to learn the skills from the grimoire, you have to have certain levels of energy. So there's like, I think it's like offense and defense levels, and obviously the earlier ones are easy to accommodate for, and you can rearrange your energy outside of battle whenever you want. I think you can rearrange it in battle too, but it takes energy or something.
Right.
But you can rearrange that stuff, and I think there's 4 different energies that you can play around with, and they all do different stuff. I think one is like how far you can move, and one's like how many turns you can have or something like that. Again, I'm still trying to figure this out. But there's like offensive and defensive, so like putting the points vertically up is like more offensive, and then putting them vertically down, which you press a button to toggle to put into that is vertically down. And yeah, these skills require you like, oh, you need like at least 5 orange and 2 green in this and stuff like that. And you learn different attacks and skills and whatnot. One of them being earlier on in the game, like I think it's like shooting or magic or something. It's like a ranged attack compared to just having a normal attack that everyone gets at the beginning. So it's interesting because you can give all these characters different skills and whatnot. And I guess it, in a way, still kind of feels like Final Fantasy Tactics because in Final Fantasy Tactics, you're leveling up jobs and you get job points and stuff, and you can unlock different skills, and then you swap somebody's job, and you can still bring over some of those skills to that character or whatnot. So it kind of feels like that in a way.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yep. Yeah, it's a very deep system, as George alluded to. I don't fully understand it either.
And a lot of these guides I read, I hardly say anything about it either, which is weird. Yeah.
There's also the elements, the element system, the elements used in the game, which I didn't fully understand either. You can
still trying to get some kind of grasp on that one, yes.
Right. You can increase and decrease the amount of power that you, the amount of energy that you put into to increase their power. They also have a positive, negative side, to which you can switch, which I really don't understand. So it's kind of like a special attack, that you can do. I kind of thought them as being like, I kind of thought of them as being kind of like, Guardian Forces slash summons from Final Fantasy games. But
kind of.
Yeah, kind of, sort of.
Yeah. If anyone wants to play this game, like, the warning is that the first area that you go to, you will get lost for hours, at least I did. The forest is very confusing. There's so many places to go, and I don't want to say they all lead to the same area, but they kind of do, and you have to find that one specific path that gets you further into the forest so you can finally get out.
The first town's not easy to get out of either.
It's not that big. There's only like 3 sections, and then once you leave, you're off to the forest. I don't know.
You also have the your status window. You have life points, which is your the hit points.
Yep.
Power points, which is used for your energy. Balance is the number of moves you can do like each turn. Which will drop as your hit points fall, which is very curious. That's a very interesting system.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing I forgot to bring.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's trying to simulate the fact that you get injured, so like you can't move around as much. It's interesting. It's surprising.
It is.
Nowadays that's a pretty common mechanic, but 1996 that was a pretty unique thing to have in a game.
Is it though? I can't think of any modern games that really do that.
There are several games, such as the Jagged Alliance series that they do that very well. So, it's just like for an RPG though to have this mechanic is very what? But
right.
Yeah, I don't know if I like it or not, to be honest. It's interesting. It's realistic. It's also frustrating because it's like if you get hurt, then you can't move as much, which could screw you.
See, this is where the strategy part comes in because you got to make sure that you're not getting hit, or that you're covering somebody.
Right. So,
but also it's one of those things where like if your character gets hit and they're within range, they will attack back right away, which is very helpful because there were times where I really needed that because I was low on health or I couldn't
Right.
move or something. And then my character attacked back, killed the enemy, leveled up, and got a bunch of energy and health back. And I was able to continue the fight. So
Right. Yep.
that's
Yep,
nice.
and
That's a nice thing.
Yep, and like Final Fantasy Tactics, like you need 100 experience points to go up each level. So, that's a very
Yes.
like a very consistent system. But you like that sense too. So
I always wonder why that's a thing where it's like, oh, you know what it is though? I think the more you level up, the less experience you get from
exactly.
specific enemies though
Right.
in this game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Again, like Final Fantasy Tactics, you have to go to you can only grind an area for so long if we have to move on somewhere else.
Yeah.
Find some different enemies to fight. Here's something kind of surprising. Did you check out the options screen in this game?
Probably. Is there something special there? I forget now.
It's very robust. There's a lot you can do in this, which is surprising for a game of this time period. You have the ability to be able to turn on or off the top-down faces, the music, the music,
yeah.
the music, the sound effects, the animation, the scroll speed, and the scroll speed, and the speech window color. And you can also copy or delete your memory. Your safe spots here, and you can also change the volume levels of the audio and the music. Very
If you
nice.
scroll all the way down, you could actually find the secret toaster mode too for your SNES, where like you unplug the cartridge and put in a piece of bread and it cooks it for you.
It's one of the icons that this game uses does look like a toaster.
Yes.
I can't think what it is like right now, but it looks like a toaster.
The saving stuff is actually interesting. I think you get 3 slots, 2 of them being outside of combat, and then there's a slot specifically
Yes.
for being inside combat.
Right,
which
I
is
was talking about that later
awesome.
on. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's there's certain colored spots in the map that you can find that will determine. I don't remember the color system like right now. It's like blue is like an out of save. Blue is like an out of combat save, and green's like an in combat save or something like that. But
I think blue is out of combat, and then I thought it was like yellow or orange or something maybe.
something like that. Yeah. So
I don't know.
yeah. It's
What are
definitely
colors anyway?
Yep. It's just think of it as the modern equivalent. Semi equivalent, like having like an autosave. I mean, you still have to manually save it, but that's kind of what it kind of like sort of same function.
Kind of.
Yeah. So the combat, you're right, George. That is a really cool system. I really like that because like you can save out of battle before you start the battle, and then and also save in battle as you progress, and things get really bad. Then you can just go back to your older save and try it again. But so.
Yep.
Definitely a really good system, and you will be doing that a lot in this game because it's very difficult. This is a hard game.
It's a doozy.
I'd go I'd go so far as to argue this game's tougher than Final Fantasy Tactics. Final Fantasy Tactics, at least the first half of the game is no cakewalk. So
Right, but you have more people and whatnot in that game.
true,
You can kind of just grind up those job points and then get some really good skills and whatnot. Whereas this game, definitely this game is harder.
Yep, and also like in Final Fantasy Tactics, once you get once you get about halfway, two-thirds of the way through, like the game, pick up Thunder God Sid, the difficulty of the game drops significantly. Whereas this game doesn't have anything like that, so it kind of stays difficult the whole way through. But and there are a lot of battles. There's over 70 battles in this game. For everything I saw online, so definitely like a very deep system. So the combat system is fairly standard as far as these tactical RPG / games kind of go. You get skill books in the game, which if you distribute power that George was talking about earlier to learn the skill, then use the skill several times in battle. Eventually a message will come up telling you the character has learned it. So there's 21 skill books there's 21 skill books in the game altogether.
And once you get the skill from the book, you can actually go and sell it. You don't have to worry about
exactly. Yep.
holding on to it because you have limited capacity,
Mhm.
which stinks. I hate when games do this.
Well, Bane.
It's like 6 spots per character or something.
Yeah,
like
I
that.
know. Yep, I
Something
know. It's frustrating, but a lot of games this time
Yeah.
period did it, so it's like one of the grit and bear things. But
Yeah.
Also, it's important to note some skills cannot be taught by books. So some skills require the character to be a certain level. Some skills require the character to have the energy distribution set up in a correct way. Some skills only some skills can only learn can only be learned by some characters. So
Right.
and there's one character, Star, who only learns the skills by defeating certain enemies.
Oh, so it's like a like Gao from Final Fantasy VI, essentially.
Yeah. Yep.
Except he doesn't go.
Similar.
He doesn't go and live with them for like a couple of hours or something. He just
Right.
just sucks it in like Kirby.
Yep. So George mentioned the George mentioned the conversation system earlier in the game. To add on to that a little bit, besides the top-down, normal, strong, forceful, and weak options that he mentioned, you can also give gifts to certain people. If you give, and it's kind of like trial and error, but the game's a bit friendly with this because if the person wants the gift, they'll be like, "Hey, I love this, thanks." Whereas they don't want it, the item will give the item will return back to you like no harm done. So you can, so you can feel free to trial and error that and see what people like.
Yep.
There's also you can also talk to them. You can also talk to them two different ways. There's a regular talk function, which just basically just gives you like information like a typical RPG. There's also a topic option, which brings up a menu of things to talk about. Again, kind of like modern games in that sense.
Makes it feel like an adventure game.
Yeah, exactly right. So.
What can you tell me about this napkin? I don't know nothing about that.
It's curious to see this. It's curious to see that mechanic in RPG, though. I was pleasantly surprised to see that. That's something that you don't expect to see in a game like this.
Yeah.
Let's see. The buying selling system is pretty standard as far as your items go. You have weapons, body armor, boots, other, which is like miscellaneous stuff, like like rings or whatnot. Items. Certain items will like boost your stats. Certain items will like certain items will increase your abilities as long as you're wearing it, etc., etc.
Right.
So the skills are pretty diverse. They require a certain, but besides energy, they also require your stats to be. Most of them require your stats to be a certain level. For example, the shots the shot skill requires 3 positive red and 1 negative green to use it. It also requires your strength to be 60, your high, your dexterity at 10 or higher, and your luck at 80 or higher. But shots are very useful ability because you can shoot with a single enemy 4 squares away for some pretty good damage. So it's nice. It's a nice skill to have. Pretty good mix of skills. Again, very FFT-ish as far as we can do. You have healing stuff, attack stuff. The stone downer skill is pretty cool if the enemy's in the right spot. It sends a rock down a slope to hit them for massive amounts of damage. You also have skills which can decrease enemies' stats, that kind of stuff. So the controls are pretty standard for a game of this type. Didn't take too long to pick it up. I'm not sure if you had any problems with it, George, but it's like you have your triggers. The triggers will spin the triggers will spin the map around in combat.
Yeah.
One character, one button will move. The one button operates as select. One button is your status screen. Another button menu. A menu screen. Yeah, no problem with the controls. They actually make full use of the controller. So.
Yeah, unlike some other games we played.
Yes.
Yeah.
The music of this game is very good. Also, I thought, like great soundtrack.
Yeah.
You know.
I bet you the soundtrack's probably somewhere on a CD or something.
It
in
probably
Japan.
is. Yep. So, I found that is available on YouTube. I do see it on here available. That somebody's like, somebody's made the entire YouTube available. The soundtrack was done by.
Dude, these people do great work because
Yep.
I'm always trying to look for music for the games, and I'm so afraid that these more obscure ones won't have anything. A lot of if not all of these obscure games, not just for this podcast, but for PlayStation Power, almost always I will still find music for it on YouTube. Like all these people who are uploading this music, great job, because I wouldn't know what I would do without having music for these games that we cover.
Well, I don't recognize the name of the composer. But I'm pretty sure he's done some of those music before in the past too. So it's like, I think people tend to develop love relationships with composers of Japanese music. So they kind of will post everything that guy does. So I think maybe I think that maybe one of the things that's going on here in this game. So, but
Maybe.
There's also New Game Plus mode available in this game too.
Of course there is.
Once you beat the regular game. In this game though, it's called Once Again mode, which is pretty cool.
Yes.
I like that name. So, in this mode, you have a huge amount of money. So money never becomes an issue. Like an issue like that game. You also gain from enemies. In combat, money at 8 times greater rate than the regular game.
Right.
Shops also never run out of items, and they sell all items. So, there's enough here in this mode to replay the game again. I think. With that money restriction lifted off, because money is hard to get. Yeah, money definitely is hard to come by in this game. Money's tight in a lot of the game, so you got to spend carefully.
Well, if I've learned anything from playing video games, Parappa the Rapper has taught me money, money, money is all you need.
So yeah, we already mentioned before, this game is kind of confusing. It doesn't do a very good job explaining all its systems.
Nope.
No
No tutorials for these games. Weird.
Right. Yep. Yeah. So, and like George mentioned, even the guides of this game don't really talk about the systems in huge detail, unfortunately. So,
Yeah.
there are however some YouTube videos, people who play through the game that they do a pretty good job of talking about how the game operates, that kind of stuff. So, because there are at least 2 playthroughs of this game available online. Who go through the entire translated version of the game. So,
yep.
But and so their replay value of the game. I'm sorry. Their average playthrough time around 30-40 hours. So pretty.
That sounds about right.
Yep.
It's a Japanese game.
Yep. Pretty average RPG length. So.
Yeah.
There is a guy, however, on here who did a speedrun in this game without cheats. In 5 hours and 21 minutes.
Oh, geez. Okay.
So kudos to you for that, sir. We already mentioned the difficulty of this game. It's very high. You definitely have to. You have to need some patience. You definitely need some trial and error with this game.
Mm-hmm.
Another frustration I had with this game, was that there's no warnings when battles occur. So you may be trying to get somewhere and not be ready for a battle, but whoops, well, too late. You're in a battle. So
I mean, that's kind of like a lot of RPGs, though.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, I'm walking on the world map. Oh, there's an enemy. Dang it.
the game doesn't telegraph its bosses very well, though, either, I thought. So it's like most games, you kind
I
of get
guess
a
that's
sense
true,
of where the bosses are, and not this one. There is an escape command in the menu system in battles, but it's but my experience is very hard to escape from an enemy encounter. I'm not sure if you had the same experience, George.
I never tried escaping, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Also, while the 2D isometric environment graphics are very gorgeous to look at, and very pretty. Items can be hidden from you like very easily because of that. So make sure you spend a lot of time rotating around the camera and searching for stuff.
Yes. Yeah, because you can miss some really good stuff.
Yep.
Yep.
The story seems pretty good from what I saw of it. I probably got about like 10 hours of the game in, but it's a very complex story. You can tell this game. Was again designed for the Japanese market only, because like a lot of RPGs that came over here to the West had more simplified stories. I don't want to call them dumb or stupid because in many cases they weren't. It just is it's just the story of this game is very Japanese. It's very complex.
But you also have to think about, like, did they also localize those games to be just more simplistic, or
right? Yep. Yeah.
Because that happened quite a bit back then as well.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story. Like, it's very engaging, but there's a lot of stuff going on that you may not understand or may fly over your head. It's definitely it's just one of the games where things may not make sense until like several hours later on down the road. So
sounds like a Japanese game.
Yep. So yeah, this game's very Japanese. Also, there's a cool Easter egg in this game. Toward the end of the game, we already mentioned before this game was developed the same company that did the Lufia series. Lufia makes a cameo in this game.
Oh, really?
Yep, toward the end of the game.
Oh, okay.
So
we'll see if I ever get that far.
So yeah, that's pretty cool. So I mentioned before the fact this game had already been, as George said earlier, this game had always been popular, with a very small dedicated cult following. It's gotten more popular since the translation came out several years ago, because it's actually because a lot of like good sites like Super NES Drunk and like Super NES RPG Gamer and whatnot have now covered this game on YouTube with like reviews and talking about the game. One of them goes on so far as list it in the list of 13 best Japanese only games for the Super NES. So
yeah,
it's definitely a very popular game these days. It looks like amongst fans. On Game FAQs,
I'm just glad that we're able to play these games now.
Oh yeah, definitely. On Game FAQs, the game averages out to about like 4. Averages out to rating about like 4 to 5 stars.
Yep.
So, what else do you want to say about this game, George? As far as like things that you like or dislike?
I don't know if there's really much more to say. I think we covered a lot of the game, at least the aspects of it, if anything. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say, really. It's a good game. If you have time and you're interested, check it out.
If you like, if you enjoy games like Final Fantasy Tactics and other games like that, this also reminds me like about the Tactic Org series a little bit too, as far as the actual gameplay goes.
Yeah.
So, definitely very. I'm not sure I'd go so far as to call it a hidden gem, but definitely like a very like good Good RPG. That's shame. Good RPG. That's shame that never came. Shame that came out over here.
Yeah.
So, if you want this game now, because this game is never, because obviously this game has never come out here, like in the West. There's two.
That means it'll be cheap.
Well, depends upon how you want the game.
I mean, a lot of the Japanese games that I've bought are we're. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. We're pretty cheap, even with the shipping and everything.
So this game, unlike many other Japanese-only games, I looked on eBay, did not have any copies of the game available for sale in the U.S. If you want this game for the Super Famicom, you have to import it from Japan.
Which happens almost all the time.
Which raises the price a little bit, but the average price of a card-only game from Japan, which includes the shipping costs, average around $20 for this game.
Whereas if somebody was trying to sell it over here, it'd probably be like $50. So
there are however people who have made a Super NES fan version of this game. However, made it look like a Super NES game.
They made a reproduction.
A reproduction, yep. With the translation like already applied, with the label looking like it might have looked like I've gotten a U.S. release. Considering the work put into it, I don't think these. I don't think the price of these carts are that bad. They sort anywhere from $29 to $45.
That's not too bad.
Yeah. I mean, if you're like a big fan of the game, want to play it authentically, quote unquote. It's a pretty
authentically, yeah.
Well, like I said, it looks very authentic. The label work is very impressive. It looks like a legit like U.S. release.
Yeah.
So, and you get the hassle, and you already have the, you already have the ROM translated. You can plug into your Super NES if you have the, if you've done the mod to allow you to play. Actually, no, not even that. It's a US, it's a US card. So I think it's plug it right into your Super NES or your Retrocon or whatever. So it's like the convenience factor, like it's an okay price.
Yeah.
I mean, you're only paying about maybe like an initial $10 to $50 like over the importing Japanese card. So there's available also Tim was curious, a Japanese complete CIB copy of the game sold for like $60. I thought it was $64 recently.
Really?
Yep, so not bad. Yep. Yeah. Decent price. I mean, like I said, this game has its fans. It's more popular now than it was, but sort of a very super popular game. I think it probably gets overlooked a lot for some reason. So, well, it is a very complex and complicated game, which probably doesn't help its popularity any. But there's some people out there that could crave that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, anybody who likes RPGs, definitely encourage you to check this out. Especially if you're a big fan especially if you're a big fan like tactical RPGs. Warning, it's a hard game. And like we're saying, the mechanics of this game are not very properly explained. But if you're going to put the time and effort into it, you can have a very fun, rewarding experience.
You can have a fun little romp.
Yes. Well, 35 hours. 35 hours. I wouldn't call a romp, but like Actrise is a romp because you can do that game of to go through that game in like 4 or 5 hours. But
right.
But yeah, as far as an RPG goes, it's very good. I mean, I understand why the game did come out in the West. Because it does some very different ideas and concepts that probably we weren't ready for at the time period. But yeah, it's a very well developed, well put together game. Graphics are gorgeous. Soundtracks, the soundtrack's very good, and it's very unique and interesting gameplay mechanics.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything else to say about this game, George. How about you? Any final thoughts?
No. Like I said before, I think we've covered everything really.
Cool. All right then. Well, I don't know. So I don't know if I'm gonna have. I'd like to finish the game. I don't know when I'm gonna have the time to do so.
Yeah.
But thank you very much for bringing to. So thank you again for bringing to our attention another very obscure game.
Yep.
So maybe not super obscure, but definitely obscure. So next time on the podcast, we're covering a not obscure game. This is a game we're probably going to get to eventually sooner or later. But this was a Patreon request. So we're going to be looking at a very interesting game, featuring one of Nintendo's most popular and beloved characters these days, who's Kirby in Kirby's Dream Course, which is a miniature golf video game. Very interesting that they actually did this game, I thought, because it's miniature golf is popular to have computers, but you didn't see too many miniature golf games on consoles.
This game's not just mini golf though. It's more than that.
Yep, it's definitely Kirby. There's definitely Kirby-ish elements here in this game to make it very unique. So, but so we're gonna be looking at that next time. So, and because the game features multiplayer, George and I will also be playing this game together online before the podcast, so we can see how the multiplayer experience compares to single.
And we'll see what happens with that.
Yep. And anybody wants to play this game before the podcast, it's available on both the Virtual Console and also on the recently released Super NES Classic Edition.
Yeah.
So, pretty easy to get your hands on. But anyway, thank you again always for listening to the podcast. We very much appreciate it. If you want, please go. We would be very happy if you would check us out on Patreon. We have a Patreon where we are trying to offer you cool benefits for signing up, such as early access to podcasts, getting shouted out on the podcast, and also being able to dictate games for us. So as I mentioned before, one of the perks you do get is to being able to get mentioned. So, we'd like to thank Daniel, Sven, Richard, Lowry, and Chad for backing the podcast Patreon. If you want to be cool like them, please go to www.patreon.com/Super NES Podcast. I'm sorry, the SNES Podcast.com.
Yes, give them the right URL address.
Yes. If you want to email us, you can do so at the SNES Podcast@yahoo.com. You can also find us on Facebook. George, where can people contact you at?
Oh boy, well, Twitter is a thing. I changed it recently, so anybody who thinks they're following me, I gotcha. I changed my name. So I've gotten more into streaming, and I use a different name for that, so I decided to just change it to that. So my Twitter handle now is @_Derpkin_. That'll be _DERPKITTEN_. And that's about it.
Cool. All right. Well, as always, we want to thank you very much for listening to the podcast. Final thought. What do you think about the game name, George? Energy Breaker is kind of interesting. I mean, it kind of talks about the energy system in this game a little bit, but doesn't really hit it on the head. I'm not really sure what Energy Breaker means. It's a very curious game title.
I think it's a good title because if it was released in the West, it'd probably be I don't know. What do you think it would be called in the West? What do you think they would change the name to? Let's do this now at the end of the podcast.
That's a toughie. Maybe they'd probably change it. They'd probably tweak the name a little bit. maybe like Energy Warrior, or something like that. But
Oh god, that would be a bad name.
because it's like Lufia, for example, was known in Japan as Espito Denki, which translates to the biography of Estipolis, which makes no sense.
Oh.
So, yeah, good idea changing the name for the Western market title. I definitely agree with that one. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, Energy Breaker though works. I mean, it's like it's just a very interesting game title. So, but anyway, thank you again as always for listening to the podcast. We appreciate it as always, and we'll catch you again next time with our next episode. Take care, everybody.
Goodbye.
And this is curious. Lufia was playing with the Genesis as well before it got canceled. I did not know that.
I said goodbye.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man. Now you're playing with power. Super power.